Bang! We are here for some college football preseason talk. I've got Captain Lou from the 12-ounce sports crew with me today. How is it going, Lou?
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invite. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I want to get right to your Michigan Wolverines right away. I noticed that they've been left off the rankings a little bit here. ESPN didn't have them in the top 25. Do you agree with that, or do you think that they're sleeping on Michigan this year?
Well, I got to tell you, Jack, I agree with it. I'm a huge Michigan fan, as you can tell behind me. But there are so many question marks. The line play is going to be a question mark. Quarterback. I know we got Cade McNamara. They have Cade McNamara coming in, but how healthy is he going to be? He got hurt last year. They got the transfer out of Texas Tech, and also McCarthy, the hotshot freshman. Supposedly, McNamara's got the lead up on it. We'll see in week number 2 when they play Washington at the Big House. But it's Ohio State. You've got, they're going to be the top dogs. We can talk about that a little bit. But I'm not surprised, and I'm not upset because this is probably the most uneasiest I've ever felt about a Michigan team in a long, long time, if not ever. Because, we've been spoiled with having good teams that win anywhere from 8 to 12 games. And I just don't know. I hope it happens. I'm still saying they're going to win 8 or 9, but, they're going to have to prove it now.
And I know we talked about this at the tail end of last season. You didn't think that Harbaugh should be on the hot seat. They give him an extension. If he can't beat Ohio State this year, do you think things start to change? Or, eventually you got to beat your rival or at least be competitive with them.
Well, I knew they weren't going to fire him after the COVID season. And I just, sooner or later, he's got to do something. If they lose to Michigan State this year, then it's really going to get ugly. There was no way in hell they should have lost to them last year. Michigan State was bad, and I still don't understand that. I'm not saying that because, I'm a Michigan homer, but you talk to anybody in East Lansing, they'll say the same thing. They're feeling less comfortable about their Spartans than I am about Michigan. There are so many question marks. And but if he loses to Ohio State again, this is the year that I think they could have a chance playing at home. And who knows, maybe they will have something to play for as far as a good bowl game. But I don't know. There's so many other teams in that division that are halfway decent, man. It's crazy.
And it's weird saying a team's a lock when I also have them as the last team making the college football playoff with Ohio State. I have them slotting in at number 4.
Yeah.
But, are they a lock? Does anybody challenge them in the conference?
I don't see it. I really don't. Their quarterback depth is unbelievable. Their team speed they're like a semi-pro team, if you will. They're head and shoulders above them.
Yeah, and they're coming off a national championship loss to my Alabama Crimson Tide.
Yeah.
And they're losing a lot of players, but it seems like these same teams, Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Ohio State are all able to just reload every year. And it seems like those are always the 5 teams that are in the mix for the college football playoff. And I think you have it again here. And the only reason I think Georgia doesn't get in is because they're in the same conference as Alabama. I see Georgia going to the SEC championship, but I see Alabama edging them out. And this is a different Alabama team than we're used to seeing the last couple of years, but it's the historic Alabama Crimson Tide that we all grew up with and know. The defense is spectacular. The offense has lost a little bit of steam. Maybe we have a new quarterback, Bryce Young, coming in. He could, I think he's going to have some growing pains. We almost always see growing pains with young quarterbacks that are first coming in. But I think this defense can carry him all the way to the national championship. And by that time, I think he could be firing on all cylinders. So I've got Alabama trying not to be a homer here, but I have Alabama as the favorite to repeat as national champions.
Jack, how can you not? It's like you and I have talked. They're like Ric Flair. To be the man, you got to beat the man, and nobody's beating them. And it just seemed they've got a lot of new players, a lot of new positions that they're kind of, you don't know, but it's like you said, they're a factory, and Nick Saban's the best coach right now, if not of all time. He's got to be in the top 2 or 3 for a reason. One of them is recruiting, and he's got them ready on game day. And this freshman that's coming in, or as long as he doesn't get hurt, falling off his wallet with all that NIL money he's making, seriously, he's going to be good. And I could see Georgia beating him. I like your pick there. I think Georgia's going to win that division quite easily. I don't know if Florida's got enough to knock them off, but I don't see anybody else in that division giving them much of a fight. And I'm not sold. I think LSU, I don't think much of them. And, Auburn is going to obviously in the Iron Bowl, but this is a great year for Alabama to be down a little bit, if they are down, because I think they'll still win 11 games.
Well, I think their defense has actually improved. They didn't lose too many guys on the defensive end. They're bringing in some transfers that, the coaches have been raving about. They still have Pete Golding as the defense coordinator, bringing in Bill O'Brien to replace Sarkisian. But you did mention the Florida Gators. And that's an interesting team because I think they take a step back this year. I think Kyle Pitts was very underrated. He's looked at as the best tight end in college football last year, one of the biggest game changers. And somehow I still think his impact was underrated. We saw when they tried to rest him for the SEC championship and they took a loss. Without Kyle Pitts, that offense ran through Kyle Pitts, which is weird to say it runs through a tight end, but it truly did over there in Florida.
He was a game changer, and I'm still scratching my bald head about that one. Resting players at the college level, I don't know that. I don't understand that, and you know what? They deserve to lose, and
I agree.
Don't feel sorry for them at all. And I'm not sold on Florida, and they'll be decent. Anybody, they're going to win 9 games probably, which is a disappointment. I remember how those days used to be for Michigan when 9 wins was a disappointment. But I think it's going to be Georgia's to win or Georgia's to lose rather this year. I really think that could be.
Yeah, and I think LSU is going to end up playing that weird role where they're in the middle of the college football preseason rankings, and they're going to shock some people. But I also think they're going to shock people in both directions. They seem like a young team that could lose games that they're supposed to win, but also could shock some big dogs. It's not going to ever be an easy game for Alabama when you're playing LSU. I think they'll muster it out this year, but it could look ugly. In another game that I think people are sleeping on, and a team that people are sleeping on, is Miami. They're bringing in a great quarterback this year. They seem like they've been building up a little bit the past couple of years, and I think this is their year. However, they're in that conference in the ACC with Clemson. I think they make it more interesting than we're used to seeing in the ACC, but I still think Clemson's able to come away with that conference as well.
I finally bought into the liking the show. I'm not a showboat kind of guy. Miami's always had that edge, right on the edge of, being dirty or whatnot. But I really want Miami to beat Clemson. I'm just not a Dabo Sweeney guy. His woe is me attitude is just growing real old. And, his holier than thou attitude is growing real old with me. And so I want to see Miami beat him. Now Clemson, I believe they've got Georgia. Is that correct this year too, as a preseason or am I thinking of something else, or like the second or third game of the year? That's going to be fun to watch too. But I'm circling Miami and Clemson. I like your pick with Miami. I think they're going to be a good team. And hey, speaking of their quarterback, did you see? How would you love to be in his shoes, getting that deal with the Panthers to get to go? They're getting paid to go to the game.
I saw that.
Oh my God, man! Oh, it's good to be a quarterback in the NCAA right now, man. I tell you. I would love what punishment to go to hockey games and mingle with crowds and sit, in the boxes and the suites,
It is crazy. I wonder if we're going to see it become a distraction for some of these players, though. It's a whole new world. I can't imagine getting paid all that money at 18, 19 years old to play college football. It's wild to me. But I guess we see professional athletes in like the NHL every now and then. There's an 18-year-old that's making good money. So we'll see how it handles it in college football. But it's kind of exciting and interesting to see. And obviously, people have knocked Nick Saban for it, but he's absolutely using it as a recruiting tool to try to bring in top talent. I mean, the fact that Bryce Young is the highest paid college football player and he hasn't even played a game yet, it really goes to show. Well, started a game yet.
Well, yeah, and that's funny, that point you brought up about how that would work in the locker room. I want to see how the kid that's going to Texas or going to Ohio State didn't play his senior year at Texas because they won't let high school kids get paid name, image, and likeness. Now he's going to Ohio State, going to enroll early, but he's fourth on the depth chart right now. He's going to walk in making probably $500,000, in that kind of money from people in Texas. And it's or wherever. How is that going to be handled in the locker room? Are the seniors are they going to kind of are they going to treat them a little bit different? But I agree with you. Your point about Nick Saban. I've talked to people that know Mel Tucker at Michigan State, and and they tell me, oh hell yeah, he's using that as a recruiting tool. It's nudge, wink, wink to some of the donors around here, that are big Michigan State guys. And, you can't tell me Harbaugh or Ryan Day or anybody else is not going to use that.
Oh, absolutely. And if you're one of those big schools that's always in the college football playoff, like in Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson, Alabama, you'd be dumb not to use that as a recruiting tool. And I want to touch on Oklahoma here. They are a team that I think is really going to surprise people with how good they are. I've got them at number 2. I think they end up going at it with Alabama for the national championship. And they've got a quarterback who had not a tough year last year, but you see him with the Heisman favorites. They're already putting him up there. He was on that TV show on Netflix, QB1.
Wow.
And, he kind of had a mixed attitude, Spencer Rattler. How do you think he does this year? Do you think he takes that next step and really looks like a dominant quarterback in college football? Because I think he does. He can move. He can throw. He seems to be able to do it all, but his decision-making at times can be a little tough.
That's what he's going to have to work on. That's a great point. I was going to say that. And, he's got all the tools. Now, the thing that I wonder about they're going to get a push from Oklahoma State and Iowa State, I think. And I think there's going to be a little extra incentive for those boys to want to beat Ohio or Oklahoma and Texas this year, since they're going to be playing with you guys more, down in Alabama full time. And I think I think they'll squeak that out in that conference. And I think he's got to be the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman, but we all know that always doesn't happen. I like him. I like him a lot. And, Oklahoma is going to be right there. There's no doubt about it. I do think that they're going to win the Big 12 and they will make it to the Final Four. I don't know what their seeding is going to be, because I think we are, as tough as this is for me to say as a Big Ten fan, you're going to see 2 SEC teams in there unless something crazy happens.
You think so? So I have my top 4s. I have Alabama making it as the 1 seed, Oklahoma 2, Clemson 3, and then I got Ohio State slipping in at 4.
I've got Alabama at 1. I've got Georgia at 4. I've got Ohio State at 2, and I got Oklahoma at 3.
So you think that we're going to see the SEC championship and then a rematch right after it between Alabama and Georgia?
Well, that's how it, to me, is how it should shake out. But we both know what'll happen if that's the case. I might have to, maybe make Georgia 3 and make Oklahoma 4. Just so we don't have that until the championship game. But I honestly, I don't see an ACC team getting in. I just don't think Clemson. I think they take a slight step back. I mean, they're going to be great, but I think they're going to lose to Miami, and then Miami's going to lose a game in there. And I just think, and who knows with what Florida State's got, I don't think they're going to be that great, but they're always dangerous. And I just don't think Clemson's going to make it to the Final Four. That's my I'm going out on a limb on that one, Jack. I think
I
we're going to see
would be a
Oklahoma.
big fan if we did see Miami upset Clemson. Although I
Mhm.
can't say I'm not a Dabo guy because he did go to Alabama, and I think
Okay.
he will be a coach at Alabama before it's all said and done, and he retires from coaching. I think we see him in Tuscaloosa. That's his dream job, whether
Yeah.
he'll admit to it or not. But actually, to go back to the SEC. I'm thinking about it. In the only team that I can really put Alabama on upset alert this season is Texas A&M. Now,
Okay.
they're number 4 in the AP poll. I think ESPN had them around 7 or 8 mark. They lost their quarterback, Kellen Mond. However, I don't think that's that big of a departure. They've got so many weapons, so much speed on offense. Their defense is right up there with some of the best teams in the country. I think they could shock some people. I think A&M could make a lot of noise, but it's all going to depend on that quarterback play.
Oh, 100% agree there too. And they are going to give Alabama. They're going to give them a tough matchup. You're right. And you brought up a good point about Alabama's defense, and I think that they're going to ultimately prevail against Texas A&M. And I like their team speed though, but I just think Alabama wins a close one in that one. And that game right there, Jack, that's going to springboard Alabama right there. They get that.
I think it very likely could. But you got to always give a coach a couple of years when he gets to a new program. And we've seen Jimbo Fisher go to national championships with Florida State. And I think he finally has his own Texas A&M team. I think this is the first year where we can really say this is Jimbo Fisher's team. This is what he built. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
Do you think there's any temperature on his hot seat?
I think if they throw up a stinker and they don't finish in the top 10, top 15, I think he very likely could be on the hot seat. But I don't think that they're expecting him to win the whole thing this year. I don't think they're expecting him to go to the college football playoff. Okay. It's so tough when you're competing in the SEC against the Alabamas, the Georgias, the LSUs. And it's going to get a whole lot tougher because Oklahoma and Texas are on their way here. They're not in here for a couple of years. But what is that going to do for the other conferences? Are we going to start seeing more teams join, say, either the Big Ten or the ACC? Because, the SEC is definitely becoming somewhat of a super conference.
Oh, yeah. Well, the rumor has it up here anyways that Kansas is going to join the Big Ten, more so for basketball, I think. And, they've been talking about Oklahoma State or Iowa State. Iowa does not want Iowa State in the Big Ten. They've tried before, and they just don't want them. And
much
so
like A&M did not want the Texas Longhorns in there.
Exactly.
Although it did become a unanimous vote because you don't want to be the one team that votes against it. And that's what A&M was going to be. They tried, they pleaded, no one would follow them.
Well, and it's funny because I wanted to talk about that. I kind of wavered a little bit on if I liked Oklahoma and Texas going in there, but I do. Because I think it could create some more rivalries. One of them is going to bring back, Texas A&M. They're going to be. I don't know I don't think they still play, but they can renew that rivalry, and it's going to be heated back in the Southwest Conference days. And I've got family that lives in Arkansas, and I've been an Arkansas fan since Lou Holtz was coaching. So, they used to play Texas every year. They used to, they still play, or they used to play A&M every year. I think they still do. At Jerry World, but I like how those rivalries could reignite. I'm a traditionalist, but I've also kind of raised the red flag or white flag on that. I'm all for building some new traditions, some new rivalries. Oklahoma and Nebraska aren't going to be a rivalry anymore, and it's funny because Oklahoma's way up here and Nebraska's way down.
Yeah,
and that was 50 years ago, 50 years ago. I love it. And I got to tell you, Jack, there is no way they're going to wait till 2025 for them to go. My opinion is they will be there within 2 years tops.
They'll find they're moving
early. No doubt about it. I think that if I read it correctly, and you might have told me this too, was Texas rather is owed $160 million by ESPN for the Longhorn Network. I mean, there you go. Take 80 of that. Boom. You're paid off. You're in early. Pay,
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be interesting that Texas, Alabama, because the fans kind of have a rivalry, but the teams don't really meet up too often. But there is that national championship game where, you have the injured quarterback, very controversial. People say that Texas would have won if Alabama didn't take out the quarterback. There's a lot of chirping on both sides. That was really the start of the dynasty in Alabama. That was the first championship of many more in the recent years for Alabama. So I think we could see a rivalry between those two schools as soon as Texas gets in there.
I agree, and that's what I'm looking forward to. That makes college football, the rivalries, and you build new ones. And Michigan State they got one with Penn State. They play for the land grant trophy every year, and that's becoming a good sized rivalry. And you got new ones. But back to your original question, I see a team like West Virginia going back to the ACC. I would think, and I don't know. Then you're looking at the Pac-12. They got to be going, man, we got to get some of these teams. We got to get it so we can be relevant in the national championship conversation, because they've had one team, I think, in Oregon in the Final Four, if I'm not mistaken, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's their best shot again this year, and it's a long shot to say the least.
Sure is.
I don't know how they're going to compete again. What happened to Stanford? What happened to those Pac-12 programs? USC, they're not even relevant anymore. Stanford's completely irrelevant, and Oregon's always just not good enough. They're almost there, but they're just not good enough, and they lose games late in the season.
Yeah, I just it's mind-boggling. You've got teams that now I call them second. This is a bad word up here, being a Michigan fan, but I lump USC, I lump Michigan, and I lump in Texas as almost second-tier national title contenders, because they're just not what they used to be. Again, 30, 40 years ago, they were the teams every year. You had Ohio State, you had Alabama, you had USC, Michigan, Notre Dame, and Texas. Those were the six. And it was either Michigan or Ohio State in the Rose Bowl every year, playing for a national title, mythical one. But Michigan's not near that. Texas, they're good, but they're not to that level yet of Alabama and Clemson or Ohio State. And so the Pac-12, I don't know what they're going to do. It's just mind-boggling to me that a team of that pedigree of USC cannot get the players and the coaches to go there. It's who wouldn't want to play in Southern California, 70 degrees all year round, the good-looking women, the scenery, you're in Hollywood, and they just, especially now with name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
And if they don't make it now, then I don't know what the hell they're going to do, to be honest.
It's almost like they somehow managed to battle so hard for recruits with the UCLA, and they almost end up hurting each other because they're taking all the talent and they're splitting it in half.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you see that in a bunch of different places. I mean, Georgia obviously has a stranglehold over Georgia Tech when it comes to talent. In Georgia, they end up losing more talent from Georgia to Alabama than they do Georgia Tech. But it seems like California is just they're hurting each other. UCLA got more competitive over the years, and it did hurt USC.
Yeah.
But the Pac-12 needs to figure something out, because I don't see them getting a team in yet again.
Nope, I agree. I don't see it happening. I as much as I like Oregon, I just don't think they've got enough. And I thought maybe, then you got the teams that are close to them, like Utah or whatever. But you're right about Stanford. That just, I don't know what happened to them. And, the Arizona teams are brutal. And so I don't know. The Pac-12 is going to be, they're going to be left out again.
Yeah, and another team I want to talk about is Notre Dame. I think they have been taking steps back every single year for the past couple of years, and I think this is going to be the year where they take their biggest step back. They have the departure of Ian Book,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how well they replaced him or how well they restocked. It didn't seem like you were hearing any of those big name,
No.
like high school football players that everybody was talking about over the country. I don't know if any of them went to Notre Dame. They seem to have absolutely lost their muster. And I think it partially is due to the fact that they're not in a conference. I mean, they were in the ACC last year. I don't know if they are this year. I believe
No,
that
I don't think
they're
they are.
back in independent again.
Yeah.
I think that hurts Notre Dame. You're not playing in that conference championship game. You're not getting that extra national spotlight on you. I mean, you do have most of your games on TV, but they're all daytime games for the most part. And I don't know. It's just not the sell it used to be in South Bend.
I agree. They can't sell the fact to these recruits that, hey, you're going to play in Tuscaloosa, you're going to play at Clemson, Death Valley. Even getting to the ACC, you're not going to play in Miami. I mean, they may play occasionally because they've got to play 5 games against ACC schools. But that independent status, I do think hurts them. You're right, and I see 8 wins, so I definitely see a step back because I don't think their schedule is all that difficult.
It never is.
No, it's not. And I don't know who they play in the ACC this year, and I know they got a couple of patsies, but they may play.
They always play Boston College.
Okay, yep, and I think they might play Miami. I'm not sure on that. I might be getting them mixed up with Michigan State because I know they play them, and they're going to get boat rocked by them. But when they go down there, but yeah, I see Notre Dame as a 7 to 8 win team.
Yeah, and I know the AP poll has them at number 5. I think.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think ESPN has them all the way ranked down at 13, probably where they actually belong.
Yeah,
I feel like that offense is really going to struggle, and they're going to miss Ian Book a lot.
I agree.
Ian Book was actually, I mean, he doesn't blow you out of the water with making spectacular plays, or his stat line won't shock you, but he always makes the smart play.
Yeah.
There's very few times where Ian Book has that terrible interception or that absolute mistake. He was very consistent, and that's something they're going to miss in Notre Dame right there. I
agree in his leadership, and and I don't know. I like Brian Kelly. He's a local guy here. He started out at Grand Valley, where my son goes to college. Then he went to Central, and he brought them to a couple of decent bowl games, and so I've got a soft spot for Brian Kelly, but he's been there a while, and I think his message is starting to get a little bit old, kind of reminding me a little bit of Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State, how he brought the message. He turned that program around from depths, but it got old, and he knew it was time for him to go. I'm not saying Brian Kelly's going to get fired or quit, but you got to wonder. He's been there a long time now, and it gets tougher to recruit. It gets tougher to want to recruit, especially like with the name, image, and likeness, where you got to bow down even more to these kids. And to your point, you just can't sell the name Notre Dame. It's not 1965 and 1988 anymore. You got to have the pop and sizzle, man. You got to be able to bring it with telling these kids where they can play and showcase themselves to the NFL scouts,
Yeah, and one last thing I want to talk about before I take up any more of your time here is Iowa State. Now, they snuck up on everybody last year, but I don't think they're sneaking up on anybody this year because they're returning so many players. They won the Fiesta Bowl last year, which I had as a bit of a shocker. I mean, I didn't think they were going to get past Iowa. Iowa State is now becoming more of a dominant program than Iowa is. I mean, that defense in Iowa is always so good. I know that both teams struggle on offense normally, but Iowa State looked spectacular last year. The quarterback's coming back. The tight end's coming back. Lots of weapons are coming back. I think Iowa State is a threat to honestly sneak in the college football playoff. They're my Cinderella team.
Well, I agree with you. That's who I think is going to give Oklahoma their biggest threat, and it's not going to be Texas. And I don't think it's going to be Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's going to be very good. They're one of my picks to possibly do it. But I love what you're saying about Iowa State, and I'm with you. I love Purdy at quarterback. I just think that
Yep.
he's got an opportunity to put himself what I call the NFL lottery, top 10 next year. And as much as I hate to say this about Jared Goff, you could be seeing either him or Spencer Rattler in a Lions uniform next year if what a lot of people are saying. But I love Iowa State. I think that they could give Oklahoma a run for their money. I really do. But I love your point, though. They're not. There's no secret there anymore. They're not going to sneak up on anybody, and that's a great point.
Yeah, and I think the NFL scouts will be marking their calendars for an Oklahoma versus Iowa State matchup, because those are two quarterbacks that I expect to go in the top 10 of the NFL draft. Boy,
what's funny is, why would anybody want to go to a game when you can watch all these great games on your TV set 2-3 at a time, man? I tell you, I'm jacked for college football to start, man. And we got less than a month away. And there are going to be so many marquee matchups, and it's going to be great to have fans in the stands, man. It is just really looking forward to that, the pomp and circumstance of the bands, and oh God, I'm excited. I can't wait.
I'm excited too. Dixieland Delight in Tuscaloosa. You got the Whiteout in Penn State. You got the LSU Death Valley at night is the toughest place to play in the country. The noise of Texas A&M. It's so, college football is the best.
I got to retire so I can start traveling to some of these stadiums. That's on my bucket list, to go to Death Valley, to go to Tuscaloosa, and to go. I've been to Notre Dame. I got to tell you about Notre Dame is they're not one of my favorite teams, but it has got to be the friendliest university. It's so. The ambiance and everything it's worth a trip up in the fall before it gets cold. If you ever get an opportunity, I highly recommend it. It's, it's such a, you get that, the march of the band, the players. I mean, the pomp and circumstance of Notre Dame is amazing, and they're coming back, and with the fans and everything. Wow. Let's get her going, man. It's coming.
In A&M, I actually went there, and that was probably the biggest surprise stadium I went to. I just did not expect it to be as loud as it was.
Wow.
It definitely competes, if not is louder than Tuscaloosa, which is crazy. I never actually went to LSU. I've been to Ole Miss, Mississippi State, most of the SEC schools. Made my way to Georgia. Georgia, one of the best campuses in the country, in my opinion. The GPA requirements were a little too high for me, but other than that, I love it there.
That's why I didn't go to Michigan.
Yep. But Lou, why don't you tell the people where they can find you? Let them know about your show.
Yeah, I'm on live on Tuesday nights from 8 until 10 p.m. on 12 Ounce Sports, the 12 Ounce Network. It's called the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Jack's been a guest of mine when we talk pucks and whatnot, a little college football. We try to get 2 to 3 guests every week. Right now in August, we're right in the middle of our NFL previews. We're getting writers from all across the country. It's been pretty cool to be able to hook up and talk to people like from Cleveland and Chicago and Green Bay, and was able to talk to somebody from New England and that area. And it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. Get to meet and talk to some people. I've had some great guests. I've had Freddie Lynn on from the Boston Red Sox days. This year I had Rupert Jones. He used to play for the Tigers back in the glory days. Kenny Norman played ball with he played for a dozen years in the NBA. And it gives me a chance to get to talk to some of these guys and gals that I grew up watching. And we're having fun with it. We're going to do a little bit more. I just want to also mention that the Captain Lou 6-Pack Challenge is coming back for a third year. Jack, you got to be a part of it this year. What we do is we take 3 games each week, college and pro. I pick them, and it's against the spread. All you got to do is pick those 6 games better than I do, and you're in the drawing for a cool prize at the end of the year. We've given away $100 Visa gift cards in the last couple of years. I got a feeling it might be that and even a little bit more this year because the popularity of it's growing. So that starts the opening week of NFL season. So really look forward to that. And we got a lot in the works. I really appreciate you having me on, man. This is whenever I can talk football, I'm there anytime.
It's always a blast. College football right around the corner.
Yep.
The training camps have started. The buzz is there. Make sure you subscribe to the Tarps Off Sports YouTube channel. Hit that bell and don't ever miss an episode. Thank you for coming on, Lou. I really appreciate it.